I wrote a blog post, and the name of it is "You Don't Need Neo. You Can Be Your Own Effin Neo." And I wanted to do like a little video companion to go along with it. I'm going to try to tell my story the same way I told it on this post. So if somebody wants to read it, obviously it'll be there for somebody to read, and if they don't want to read it, they can watch this, and hopefully I'll be able to pull everything out. I don't know what year The Matrix came out, but I remember when I watched that movie and it wrapped up the end of it, I was like, I so get this movie on a level that to me felt like real life and not a movie. I really do feel like I felt like Neo. I really did. Not that I'm going to save anything, but I felt like that because I used to go to church. Being a Libra and needing everything to be so balanced, it can make you into quite a perfectionist. And I can remember growing up, I had a place for everything. I just thought everything's supposed to be a certain way. I had learned it through my grandfather that was very much a perfectionist. I'd learned it from my mom. I could remember her sewing a dress for me when I was 7 years old, and she stayed up all night long tearing it apart and putting it back together to make the dress perfect. And I wouldn't have noticed if it wasn't perfect, but for her it needed to be perfect. And so I lived with that, and I don't know how I got the idea. I think probably because my mom had been married. She ended up being married 3 times, and so I had a couple of different stepdads, and a dad that he pretty much abandoned me when I was, I don't know, I'm going to say 9. I mean, I hadn't seen him a lot up till then, but I didn't see him at all after that until I was a senior in high school, graduating high school. And so maybe there was a part of me that felt like if I could do everything just the right way, that I would be lovable, or I don't know. But anyway, I got those kind of ideas in my head. And then I was in a long-term relationship with somebody for over 6 years. And in the first probably 2 years, maybe 3, but definitely the first 2 years, I was super young through the whole thing, but the first few years, I really gave up every aspect of who I was to try to make that person happy and to make myself lovable to that person. And the more I did that, the further it seemed like it pushed that person away. And then at some point I realized I wasn't happy, and I realized that I wasn't gaining any ground by doing what I was doing, and it wasn't making me happy. Something had to change, because a lifetime is a long time to live not being happy, and I wanted to be happy. And I had to decide that me being happy was more important for me than it was for me to make sure that other person was happy. So I stopped doing all this stuff, and I started going my own way. I'd went to church with him all those years. Some of the times we sat apart so nobody would know we were together, because he didn't want anybody to know that we dated. But I still went to church, same church with him. And there were a lot of people that passed judgment on me because I had been married before, and they passed judgment on me because I had Skylar, my son, at a time when I wasn't married. I tried to live up to their standards, and I tried to do everything the right way. It didn't matter what I did. But there was a lot of those people that still didn't accept me. There were people that cared about me, I know there was, and that were very nice to me, and when I quit going, wanted me to come back, and really sought for me to come back. But at that point, I'd learned that wasn't for me, and I had learned through reading things that I identified more with than Christianity that was a path that I wasn't going to tread anymore. That I moved on. I'd learned some lessons. I was better for it. And I knew things that I never would have dreamed that I would know, and there was no way you're going to stuff this little chick back in the egg. That's how I felt. I broke free of the shell, and I wasn't going to go back in. The other part of that is that unless you've done that, unless you walked that path and done it, and unless you've learned there are other ways, and unless you've explored that, and it's probably hard for anybody to accept that I could be right. I don't have to be right. I don't care if I'm right. I know it works for me. I know that it makes me happy, and I know that the people I'm around are happy with me just the way that I am. And I'm not asking anybody to go down any road that I went down. I think everybody has a path, and I think whatever path you're on, that's probably the correct one. It's probably going to lead you to wherever it is that you need to be. But that was why I be say, in a position where I was following the norm, which I like to think of as the code that created the matrix. If you think about the code that created the matrix, and Neo was the person that actually could see the code, and he could read the programming. I felt like that's what happened to me. I felt like I opened my brain, and I was able to go down another path that most people are never going to follow me down. And then I can look back and see how, even though I can see that code, there are a lot of people that are never going to see that code, and to even think about seeing it scares them to death, and to even hear me say these words scares them to death. But anyway, that's how I felt like I connected with Neo, was that I felt like I got on the other side of something, and that most people are not going to, and I'm not elevating myself above other people. I'm not. It sounds like that, but I do know some stuff because of the path I've been on, that until you break free and go down that path, you can't see it. You're not going to know it. You're not going to see the code. And not everybody's meant to, But anyway, so I felt like I really connected to that character. And then there's a book, I know most people, nobody around here that I know of has ever mentioned this, so I'm certain it's not anything anybody knows about, but there's a book called A Course in Miracles. And I was listening to Oprah's Super Conversations podcast, and she was talking to Yvonne Van Zant, and Yvonne, they started talking about A Course in Miracles. And most people Oprah's had a lot of gurus on her show, and most of them at some point have crossed paths with this book, A Course in Miracles, and base a lot of their turning point on coming in contact with that book. I mean, you could go on and on and on. It's Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson. I don't know, but there's a lot of people that that book changed their life. And so what I thought was really funny was when I was listening to the podcast, Oprah was talking about how scary it was the first time she read it. She wanted to take it out of her house, and her and Yvonne both said that they thought that God would strike them dead with lightning before the next day was over. And I just laughed out loud, because I can remember being so, brainwashed by what I thought I had to be based on what the church said and what the society said and what the people around me said. And I can remember when I started to lean away from that, it was scary, just like them reading A Course in Miracles the first time, because we have been made to think we can't question that kind of stuff. I mean, it is the fabric of America. It is. And until you've been on the other side of that, you're not going to know it. Because until you don't agree with that, you don't realize how many people are in agreement with it, and it's a way up there number. I'd go in the 90s. I don't know. I would go way high, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just know here where I live, let's say it's 95% where I live that people all agree with that kind of thinking. At some point, after reading and studying and trying to make my own way and become my own person, I realized I didn't know anything about this world. I knew what I'd been taught. I knew what they taught me about all the things about being a girl, about being a woman, about being a mother, about being a wife, about being a proper human being. I knew what I'd been taught about other people, about men, in society, about different races, about religion, about politics, about all sorts of beliefs, I knew all of the stuff that I'd been taught, but I didn't know anything for myself. I didn't know anything. I was completely lost. The other thing is that, if you think about how ingrained all this stuff is in us, in the United States, and the fact that most everyone around where I live has some sort of Christian belief, and that inside that system, and the Christian rules are set up to not question it. You can't question it at all whatsoever. If you do, you'll lose your soul. And that is freaking genius, whoever wrote that and came up with that, because you can control people. You can control a whole continent of people with that if none of them ever decide to question it. If they just all take it at face value and they never question it, you can control them, because you've made them afraid for their soul. If they question it, that they'll lose it. So I feel like I just kept saying that in a circle, but anyway. So that is pretty genius if you think about it. So that's why I feel like even like somebody like Oprah and Yvonne, when they started to question the way they believed, and I think they're both definitely of the Christian faith, but they question about all the ways that they had been taught certain things. And when they did, especially Oprah's had access to every guru of the last, big name guru of the last century, and even she was a little bit afraid to go and find her own way. She was scared of that. So if she was, I can't imagine what regular people, yeah, I can, because I went through it. Shit, I went through it. I know exactly what it's like. It is scary. And I'm not asking anybody to change religions. I'm just saying we need to start thinking for ourselves. And then I talked about how, when we're born, we open our mouth up for our family to feed us, and we're dependent upon it, and we can't say we don't want whatever is given to us as nourishment. And by the time we get to where we could say that we don't want or do, we're at the point then where we literally are fed by what we are also fed by what we are taught. And since birth, we did not have the option to second guess that, so we just follow along. We just keep going along with whatever anybody tells us. And then you go to school. I loved school when I was in it, but I have no love affair with the school system, because I have a child that was not made for. He's very talented. He is very honest. And he did not walk that chalk line they wanted him to walk. And as good a soul as he was, school was not for him. And I would put him up against anybody as far as being a loving, accepting kind of person. But nobody could see that through his honesty, because he didn't play the game. And school is not for people like that. And so I don't like that this system is set up for you to send your child there, and then them And I know there has to be order, but we send our kids there and they're taught to act the same, be the same, that there's only one way of being, and it doesn't allow for their uniqueness. And it, goes along with all the other things that break a person down, in that it, just adds to the ways we tell people that being unique and being yourself is not what you're here for. It's insane to me to think that we're all supposed to be here wearing uniforms and marching and acting exactly the same like we're robots. It's insane to me, but I feel like sometimes people, they really believe that. So I thought back about all the ways that this stuff is fed to us, and it wasn't just through our parents and our teachers and the other people that influenced us as we were growing up. We also flopped down in front of the TV and we watched June Cleaver take care of her kids in pearls and heels and never say one crossword about anything. She accepted her role. She showed us what that role was, and people still to this day, they buy into that. There's no rule book somewhere that says we have to be June Cleaver. For whatever reason that there is. Maybe not a rule book, but because we've been taught that all of our whole entire lives, we didn't need anybody to justify it. It just came and it was there and we followed it, and that's what people do. So then I got to thinking about what other show did I love? Still love it. Gilligan's Island. There was a clear divide on Gilligan's Island of who the men were and what their duties were. And there was the coconut cream pie. The men weren't making the coconut cream pies. The ladies weren't fighting off the headhunters, obviously the girls weren't the smart ones. That was the professor, and they weren't the ones making all the money. That was Mr. Howell, and Mrs. Howell was just along for the ride, and Ginger was just there to be pretty and not have a brain. And so all us little girls grew up, and if we wanted to be the girl that got the guy, more than likely that was going to be. I had to think. Then I had to go through the names. But yeah, we were going to have to be Marianne. The cute, innocent little. That's how we were supposed to be. We couldn't be Ginger, because if we were Ginger, then we'd have a lot of men and people would look down on us. So anyway, that's what we were taught. And Gilligan. And I think back about all the movies, especially the really old ones, where the woman, the man advances on a woman and she's not having it. She doesn't want anything to do with him. And they sling each other around a little bit and fall on the floor, and she's still trying to fight him off, and he's got her wrist and whatever, and then she just melts and they start making out. That's never happened to me. But in the movies, that's the way it is, If you persist, the woman's eventually going to give in. That's what they show you on the movies. That's not real. And the other thing was when the woman gets slapped. Like the man's they're trying to have whatever. She's not having it. He just keeps on. And eventually he slaps her. And once the slap happens, then she's all in. Like that slap creates some sort of passion between them, and then everything changes. Never happened to me. I would definitely not be partaking in that scenario. So yeah. Anyway, you can see why men might be confused by their role, and you can see why women might be confused by their role. Because that's what they've been telling us all these years. So if you think back to everything that you've been taught growing up by your family, by your society, by your by religion, by politics, just community, period. If you look back, you can see how all of that shaped you into who you are, along with the TV shows that you watched. It shaped us into who we are. We didn't really even have a choice in it, and we didn't really second guess it. We just like put it on like it was a suit somebody gave us, and it was the only one we had. And we never took it off. I know if you've never entertained any part of what I'm saying before, it probably sounds a little crazy to you, and it's for me to basically be telling you that everything you know is not true. You don't know anything. I didn't know anything. I still don't know anything. I learn every day, and I hope I keep on learning. That's what I love. But anyway, it feels like a lot of propaganda to put us in our roles, in our place, to know what you should be if you're a woman, to know what you should be if you're a man, if you're a child, if you're this race or that race, or we accept it. And even when I look at it now, after learning better for myself, I still can see ways I'm affected. Like sometimes I'll catch my thought or catch my words, and I'll think, oh my gosh, I am so programmed. And I'm one of the least programmed people I know, but I'm still programmed. I have to fight those battles every day to wake up and say, is this a thing, or is it something somebody taught me was a thing? What's proper? And if we all go down that path, there's nothing unique about us. There's really no point to us proceeding if we're just going to be robots. If we're not going to live up to our full potential, why are we uniqueness. Why? What's the point? We have to at some point say, okay, I've got to stop. I got to shut off all this stuff they taught me, and I've got to start all over again. And I suggested maybe we just paint over the painting that was painted for us, and we paint our own picture, and we decide what. And like I said in my post, you'll read if you read it, don't believe me, and don't go off of anything I say or anybody else. Don't believe a friggin' word I say. Figure it out for yourself. Just question the way you believe and the way you look at politics and religion and people and society and all of life, and say, is this real? Is this learned? Why do I think this way? Why do I think this way? Because I promise you, the way we look at anything is not real. It's what we've been taught, and it's what we think. It's not real. The only thing that makes anything real is your belief in it. You know, Santa Claus was real before somebody told you that he wasn't. You had a clear vision in your head of him in that sleigh bringing you your toys and putting them under your tree. You had a clear vision of it. And it was real until somebody told you it wasn't. So that's what I'm telling you to do, is to quit believing what you've been told and decide and figure it out for yourself. Like, start over and figure it out for yourself. That is what A Course in Miracles, and I'm not saying read it, I'm just going to tell you what you do, and you don't even have to get the book. But there is a portion of it that is exercises in there for you to get up every day and to re-look at every single solitary aspect and piece of life and question and just look, just try to like shave off what you thought it was and try to see it for the first time without somebody else's opinion weighed in on it. That's what A Course in Miracles is. And you can do that or not do it or whatever, but that's what it is. And yeah, it's not lost on me how scary this is for you if you've never questioned your beliefs. I did that. I lived through it. And I'm telling you that there's the finest, I can't even do it, the finest line between you and that knowledge and happiness on the other side. But if you continue to just walk through life like a zombie or a robot, just doing what everybody's always told you to do, you're not gonna ever get on the other side of that. And it really is a fine line. You don't have to like bust the wall down. Just take a peek. Just pull a curtain back and take a peek on what's on the other side. I'm telling you, once you get a little peek, you're gonna want a little more, and a little more, and a little more. You're just gonna, you won't, and once you know, you can't unknow. That's the thing. That's the thing that always cracks me up about people trying to save my soul or change my mind. I know what I know. I don't know everything. And like I said, I have to challenge myself all the time. It's not stopped and it never will stop. But what I do know, I know. And I'm not going to go backwards. It's not going to happen. To address women. We went through women's lib, getting the right to vote, all the stuff, where we kind of finally started to get included, and and they told us we couldn't do math, and they told us we couldn't do science and all that, and we believed it, and that we're just different than men. Our brains don't work that way, but they do. That's been proven. They do work that way. But we've bought into that. I almost want to read to you exactly what I wrote on this. It says, until later in the last century, women had been spoon-fed being submissive, with no capacity for scientific or mathematical study, being without basic rights that men have always had, and of a gender group that had no real voice in the world. And we still don't. A lot of places, and even here, that there are people that want that silenced. Every idea and method that has been used to hold women down has been reinforced politically, socially, religiously, and in a lot of ways that's still going on. It is the reason that even after the current president was heard to talk about women in such a nasty way, many of them still voted for him. In the minds of these women, they heard him talk about women in a way they felt was so common that it set off zero alarms in their mind. They are used to being marginalized, and these women believe the role of being a woman puts them in a place where being spoke of in that sort of way was expected and usual. And I really do believe that. And that's another side. You need to break that freaking wall. You need to crush that thing down. Because you're accepting a role you've been given and you don't question it. Come on, girls. Come on. We're just as good as men. We're just as smart as men. Yes, we can be sexy. So can men. Look them up. Look at advertising where men are being sexy to sell things, just like women. Look at the people that dance for a living that are both, they do exotic dancing, both male and female women. Male and women. There's not a single solitary sexual thing, men or prostitutes. There's whatever you can say about women giving away their bodies in any sort of way, and being marginalized in any sort of way, there's a version of that, a male version of that. Does anybody call that out? Fuck no. They don't call that out. But women are supposed to feel small in that situation, and for whatever reason, men are not. So that's all I want to say. If you want to believe that's all you're worth, hey, like I said, don't listen to me. Keep on thinking that. But hey, I'm going to try to rise myself out of the freaking dust, and I'm hoping I'm bringing a lot of people with me at some point. I hope there's a lot of women that follow, and I hope a lot of them that don't even feel strong enough, that have girls in their life that are younger, they'll at least pull them up if they don't feel strong enough to do it themselves. But we don't have to accept that shit. We don't have to. I have a husband that loves me exactly like I am, and he doesn't expect any of that shit. He doesn't expect any of it. And he doesn't feel like he has to macho himself into being some sort of role. He knows who he is. You know, you can't get much sexier than not needing to show how manly you are. It's a ridiculous concept. It's a role you guys keep accepting, just like we keep accepting the submissive. But anyway, I'm going to shut up. But y'all, you don't need me to read code for you. You don't need Neo to read the code for you. You just need to learn how to fucking read it yourself and be your own Neo. You can be that. And I'm done, y'all. I'm so done, but I'm not.